Hello, and welcome to Walk the Cinema podcast. Today we have part three of our Oscar highlight series, and I'm going to let my co host introduce this one because she's really excited.
Yes, today we are talking about Mank, which is the story about how the screenplay for Citizen Kane came to be, and it's also kind of a biographical film about the screenwriter Herman Mankiewicz and kind of his life and what led up to the events of writing Citizen Kane.
hmm I'd say this is probably going to be considered the most boring one out of the bunch.
For sure.
It's definitely not the crowd pleaser that some of the other ones are, like Promising Young Women. We'll get to that one when we get to that one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think overall it was it wasn't as impactful as a lot of stuff, but I'm excited to talk about Citizen Kane wrapped into this. So,
Yeah. But any movie that tries to make in any way reference to Citizen Kane or the creation of Citizen Kane is always going to have a hard time not being compared to Citizen Kane. But they bring it up so often in the movie that you kind of have to talk
I
about Citizen Kane
I definitely agree.
because it is, I guess, technically the biography for Mankiewicz, but all they talk about is Citizen Kane pretty much. So
Yes.
you end up just thinking about Citizen Kane.
Yeah. So basically, we start off the movie with Orson Welles being given complete creative freedom for his next project by the studio RKO. And he enlists the help of Mankiewicz to help him write the screenplay. And at the beginning, we see that Mankiewicz he's broken his leg in a car accident, and he'll be in this house away from all the distractions, and he only has a caretaker and his secretary to keep him company.
Well, we don't see that at the beginning. At the beginning, we see he has the broken leg and he's going to stay at the house, but then he flashbacks as to why his leg is broken, which is something that the movie does a lot throughout.
Yes, it does do the flashback episode or flashback sequences, but that still kind of all happens at the beginning, just kind of setting it up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it does set at the beginning. It does kind of set itself up that this is not going to be a linear story. It does have
Definitely
flashbacks,
not a linear story.
which I think is a comparison to how Citizen Kane is. Uh, its screenplay was also not written as a linear story. We kind of start at the end in Citizen
But we'll
Kane.
start with Citizen, with Kane dead,
Mm-hmm.
and them trying to figure out what his last words meant. So the story is all told in memories.
Yes, exactly. So I think it was trying to be like Citizen Kane in that aspect, which,
hmm
we'll get to my opinions on that in a little bit. But one of the first major flashbacks is back to 1930, I believe, when Mankiewicz uh, visits the MGM film set where he meets Marion Davies, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, and she's the one that kind of introduces him to William Hurst.
Yeah, she's the one that's played by Amanda Seyfried.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they bring up William Randolph Hearst and Miriam Davis pretty early on as inspirations for the Citizen Kane script,
Mm-hmm.
and that's for film historians and film nerds and that type of stuff. It's pretty cool. But I feel like most people logging in to Netflix to watch a movie don't really care about it, and that's probably part of why it maybe doesn't work
Mm-hmm.
for a big crowd.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
let's be honest, a lot of people have not seen Citizen Kane.
A lot of people haven't, and a lot of people I think are resistant to liking it too,
hmm
just because I think it is so talked about. Like you can't even in college classes, if you take a college class on film of any sort, usually one of the first movies that is discussed is Citizen Kane.
Yeah, you go scene by scene.
Yeah.
You
So,
discuss everything, the transitions.
because it's a great film.
It is, but
But Mank,
if you haven't seen that one, I don't see much of a point in watching Mank
mm-hmm.
besides trying to watch the, you know, Oscar nominees or just the people
Yeah,
bring up Mank and you like want to be in the know, but
yeah,
it's way more fun to watch when you do know the story of it.
yeah. I mean, I was one of the people that hadn't seen Citizen Kane before this, and I watched it specifically so I would have some context for Mank, and was I wouldn't say I was surprised because I knew it was supposed to be good, but it's still such an enjoyable story, and it's so well crafted, I would say,
Hmm.
that it's I'm sorry that I took so long to watch it. But I also, after watching Citizen Kane, I didn't know the historical context behind Citizen Kane.
Yeah,
Um,
Citizen Kane is not very transparent nowadays. When it came out, it was extremely transparent
exactly. I think that
because William Hurst was a huge figure.
yeah, it's definitely lost its historic context. Sorry, um, as the years have gone by, which I think happens in a lot of movies. I think a lot of movies are probably a lot more political or, you know, making a statement, but we just don't know the
Yeah,
context behind them anymore. But Mank does kind of at least give you a glimpse of what was going on at the time.
it does do a good job at that.
Hmm.
You do understand what's going on, even though it feels a little overbloated sometimes, especially with the politics.
Yeah, I would agree because we go back again in a flashback type of scene where Mank and his wife are attending a birthday party, and all these Hollywood uh, producers, I guess, or the people that own the companies are all gathered at Hearst's house or his castle.
Hmm.
I think is they he actually had a
Yeah,
castle,
it's a castle. Yeah,
and they're talking about a lot of different politics, such as what's happening in Nazi Germany, and
those are actually pretty funny scenes.
yeah, and kind of who's going to be running for uh, the California governor. Um, who
Then later on, we see the actual election
Yes,
party.
yes. And basically, all of Hollywood wanted the Republican candidate to be nominated or to be elected. But
Hmm.
Upton Sinclair, which was the Democratic Party candidate, they were worried that they really didn't want him to win because they were afraid that, I'm not exactly sure what they were afraid of.
That's politics.
Yeah. But I
They're
do
afraid
get
that
it.
you would drive Hollywood to Florida. The
Maybe.
studios would move to Florida. They mentioned that.
Yeah. But I think that was just like threats. I think that Republicans were probably going to keep
Hmm.
them making more money than what they would
Yeah,
if
that's
they were Democrat.
this is probably like my more down point towards the movie. I don't really care for the politics that they bring up. I also don't see a real point
Yeah, I
to
mean,
it.
I guess the point of it is to kind of show that Mankiewicz was not the same as the people he was working with, which is probably
Oh,
why.
he hated the people he worked for.
Yeah,
That was very obvious. He hated authority. He hated Orson Welles. He hated people at MGM. He hated anyone that would tell him what to do.
yeah, very much. You can definitely tell that, but
And they kind of looked down on him. They just there was the different classes
mhm,
where the producers like, oh, it's just another writer.
yeah,
Oh, he wrote one of the movies for us.
yeah. I
One of
don't.
the Lon Chaney's. Who cares? He's just a writer.
Yeah,
One of many.
exactly. Which I think like writers are always kind of complaining about that even to this day that
Yeah,
they're the
you
ones
don't
that
get
kind
the
of
credit you deserve.
yeah, you're coming up with the source material, but it's always about who's either playing in it or who's directing it, producing it. It's never really about
Yeah,
the
no studio puts written by in the poster as a promotional material. No one cares.
Yeah, unless
The public doesn't care.
yeah,
Someone cares, but not the movie going audience.
yeah, unless you're like Quentin Tarantino and you write and direct your own movies, then then they'll put it there. But I guess I kind of like the historical context a little bit more, or like the politics. Throughout the movie, I remembered the name Upton Sinclair from something because it's such a like unique type of name. And all throughout the movie, I was like, "Who is Upton Sinclair?" I remember him being something in my one of my classes, and I finally figured it out. He wrote this book. It has nothing to do with the movie, but I thought it was an interesting like fact called The Jungle. And it came out. I think it was in I don't remember. I think it was sometime in the tens, maybe the 1900s, like OOs. But he wrote this book called The Jungle, and it was about the meatpacking industry in the United States and how unsanitary the conditions were and how the labor was being exploited and stuff. So with that particular book, he was able, or it brought to the U.S. attention that they needed to create a meat inspection act. So basically, he just exposed that we were being really super disgusting with our meat.
Yeah, and that's the type of politician that powerful people are scared of.
Yeah, because he can expose kind of corruption very quickly. So it's,
Mm.
and to a point where it makes people realize that they need to change their policies. So I think old Hollywood probably was kind of scared of Upton Sinclair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting because I was like, oh, I have some historical context. And again, with this movie and Judas and the Black Messiah, it just makes me wish that the American public school education system kind of taught in ways that kind of made you care about stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
But also, for historical context, I think the portrayal of Orson Welles, although it was very brief, it was scaringly accurate.
I agree.
The actor is almost double the age Orson Welles was at the time, but he still pulls it off. And the
Yeah,
voice, I don't think it's the actor's voice. I think it's a recording,
maybe.
but it sounds great.
Yeah. I think that Orson Welles also just kind of looked older than what he was. Because,
Well, he lived a lot of years for 24, 25-year-old.
yeah,
He
it's,
worked in theater for a long time, and his voice was one of the most recognized radio voices.
yeah, it's kind of insane how, I don't know how I would describe it, just how influential Orson Welles was at such a young age.
Yeah, he really worked his way up there.
Yeah.
He did everything he could.
Yeah. But basically the rest of the movie, it goes back and forth between Mankiewicz writing it in the present time, quote unquote, in the 40s, uh, to the events that kind of inspired him in that when they happened in the 30s.
Yeah, it's a very jumbled
It is.
timeline, but he did make it a little easier. He would always put on screen the date
Mm-hmm.
of what was happening in the event itself, and sometimes it's a flashback or a couple weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah.
So he always knew where you were, but still, I feel like that was. I understand why David Fincher kept his father's script, and I do love. I kind of love that aspect of it
Me too.
on a personal level,
Me too.
but from a film perspective, it kind of needed a little bit of trimming,
I
make it a
agree.
little bit more linear,
Yeah, I think
to be easier to follow.
yeah, and I think that part of the reason, this is my personal opinion, I think part of the reason why it wasn't a linear story is because it was trying to emulate the style of which
Hmm.
Citizen Kane was portrayed.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that Mankiewicz, as the major focus of the story, is just not as interesting as the character in Citizen Kane is.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't think the story of Mank is memorable enough to be its own thing without always bringing up Citizen Kane.
exactly. I think that it does, especially at the beginning. It's kind of boring.
Yeah,
Um,
the first act is probably the worst part by far. It's not probably, it is the worst part of the first 30-35 minutes were really slow before it
yeah,
started picking up and putting jokes here and there.
yeah, and even I say even on the parts that are a little bit more fast paced or more entertaining, they're still a little boring. Or it's like by
Hmm.
the time you get to those parts, you're kind of over it, you know? Um, I think it's a bit long, and I think that while the going back and forth isn't necessarily confusing, it's still leagues behind what Citizen Kane was when they did their trans.
Yeah, but to its defense, we don't need another look at the Orson Welles William Hurst thing. There's a lot of that already. Like that's known. The Mankiewicz part of the story is the part that's not really as talked about or known.
Yeah, no, I don't mean it like that. I mean it like in Citizen Kane, the transitions between the different timelines are seamless. They're seamless and
Hmm.
they make sense. Whereas I think in Mank, it's not as seamless. It's not as clever.
No,
It's just kind of falls. It kind of falls flat.
it's a little clunky, and that's why it didn't get that editing nomination.
Yeah, it is clunky.
So, do you want to talk about the nominations, or do you have anything?
No, I think we can talk about the nominations.
Okay, I got the most nominations,
Yeah,
which knowing the Academy and knowing what this movie is, it's pretty obvious that it was going to get a lot of nominations.
yeah. I think that the Academy would have wanted to have. I think the Academy would have wanted to respect the story of Citizen Kane and
Yeah,
how it came to be.
and not just that, but we'll talk about it when we mention the nominations. So, you got actor for Gary Oldman, supporting actress for
Amanda
fuck.
Seyfried.
So, you got actor for Gary Oldman, supporting actress for Amanda Seyfried, best director for David Fincher, production design. You got score, makeup and hairstyle, best sound, costume design, cinematography, and obviously best picture.
Mm. And did you mention
Yeah,
the score?
I mentioned the score. Yeah,
Okay,
I like the score.
that's okay.
No, I actually really like the score. It was very uppity at points,
I
which helped with the comedy. Which I did like. The comedy was witty and it was subtle enough that the movie itself wasn't a big comedy, but
yeah.
the comedic points were always there.
I don't know. I didn't particularly think about the score when I was watching the movie.
I don't think any of these nominations are undeserving. Some are leave or take.
Yeah, I agree.
It's
There's
not going to win most of them, not by a long shot,
no.
but it was always going to get nominated for a lot.
I'm trying to think about which ones I think it would win. We're not gonna say what we think is gonna win yet, but it's kind of one of those movies where I feel like I wanted to like it more than I did.
Oh, for sure. Me too. I wanted to like it more, I just couldn't.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a bad movie,
No, no.
but
It's obviously not a bad movie.
it's just kind
It's
of
very much the award winning type movie where it has the respected director with the respected actor
mhm.
and the lead. It's in black and white. It's a period piece. It's about movie making. It was always going to get a lot of awards.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nominations.
I am
So
a little bit surprised that it didn't get any type of screenplay nomination. Um,
I'm not surprised.
I'm a little,
As much as I like the story behind the screenplay, I don't think the screenplay is very tight.
well, that's what I'm saying. I like surprised, but I'm also not surprised. Like I don't think it's particularly good,
Hmm.
but I feel like this is such a thing that the Academy would want to nominate.
Yeah, maybe it's a cute story. It's like a love letter from a son to his father that he made the movie that his father wanted
Yeah,
to make happen.
yeah. Which that's
But at
probably
the end of the day, the script is not that tight. It's a little messy,
yeah,
and David Fincher didn't want to touch it. He wanted to keep his father's vision, so I respect that. But from a award stand, you just can't reward that type of script.
yeah. I agree. So I guess moving on to what we both gave it. I think we both gave it the same rating, a
Mm-hmm.
7.
Yes.
Where
So
personally, I think it's the more I think about it, and the more I reflect on everything that's gone wrong with it. I guess in my mind, it's closer to.
yeah, but you got to remember a lot of people, a lot of things went right
That's true.
too.
It's
The
true.
performances were solid.
The performances were solid.
I mean, Deciphered was pretty funny. Not just her, even Mayer was funny.
Yeah, I still think
The
it's
president of
closer.
MGM.
I think it's closer to a 6.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we just want to like it more
Yeah,
than we actually do, and we're lying to ourselves. But at the
maybe.
end of the day, just a number that we're giving out to the internet. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, this I can't see this movie being talked about really in the
Mm.
future. Not even in the context of Citizen Kane.
I think some critics would disagree with you, but I think also a lot of people would agree. I think it's forgettable,
Yeah.
and not that I wouldn't watch it again, but if I watched it again, I probably would have not remember a lot of scenes.
Yeah, I think it can be very, very forgettable. I think I think one of the most memorable things about it happened in real life, and we have like the audio at least from it, where
Mm,
Mankiewicz is doing his acceptance speech for winning best original
best
screenplay,
screenplay, yeah.
and he said something about how much of it was written.
He says, "I'm here to receive this award in the same manner it was written, without Orson Welles being present."
Right, yeah.
Something along those lines. It was a burn.
Yeah, like that's probably one of the most iconic things about the movie, and
But there was also Orson Welles' actual voice from an interview where he didn't seem to care,
yeah, exactly.
which is part of why he was ousted out of Hollywood. People didn't like him.
Yeah, I can see. He seems like he was a little bit cocky.
He worked from a very young age to get where he was, so he felt like he deserved everything, and a lot of people didn't take to that attitude too well.
Yeah.
They also just saw this kid coming from theater and radio, and they're like, why is he getting what he's getting?
Yeah. But I mean, just talking about Orson Welles, I mean, he created some of the I would say most iconic versions of theater and on the radio. I mean,
Hmm.
you look at
You got War of the Worlds.
yeah, his War of the Worlds, which
You got Voodoo Macbeth in theater, which is also
yeah,
good.
he did Macbeth, he did Othello,
Hmm.
very very prominent, I'd say, in culture.
I also love his documentaries later on.
Mm.
F for Fake is iconic.
Yeah. Whether
So
you
yeah, I think that
whether you liked him as a person, he made great stuff, and I think
yeah, yeah,
the story
definitely.
about Mank, he created a masterpiece with his screenplay, and
He did.
I'm
I'm still
happy.
not a fan of Mankiewicz's screenplays.
No, as a whole, no, but this one in particular, Citizen Kane, I don't think you can take that away from him, and
No, you can't take that away from anyone involved in that one.
I'm glad that the Academy at least was able to recognize Mankiewicz um,
For
for
the
Citizen
screenplay.
Kane, yeah, during
Yeah.
the Academy Awards, because as we know, the Academy Awards did not like Orson Welles very much, and his movie
Not at all.
didn't win anything besides this. So
Yes.
kind of crazy.
So if you like the story behind Citizen Kane, you can watch The Battle Over Citizen Kane, which is what went behind the scenes with Orson Welles and Hearst. trying to fight over the movie being released. That's a pretty cool experience too. But for this episode, I think that's it.
Yep. We will see you next time. Our next episode should be Minari. So
Yes. So don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to see Minari, you can even click that bell notification on YouTube if you are on YouTube, and it'll email you when it's out so you don't miss that.
that's all for now. Thanks for listening.